episode, week 2 this time of the Packers Falcons game. Also, an overreaction Monday. And somehow, some way, our Green Bay Packers gave up a 12-point lead there in the fourth quarter. Uncharted territory for us Packer fans, as that's the first time it's happened since 2014. And I don't want to get into the game that it happened to. I'm sure you can probably guess it, but that said, we're here to make sense of everything that just transpired here in the aftermath of that 25-24 loss to Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. Let's go ahead and open up this tab, Dave. Grab yourself a beer, Packer fans, because it's probably going to be needed after giving up that lead here on Sunday.
We were talking about this quite a bit in the offseason, that young team, highs and lows. There's just going to be some uncharted territory in terms of result-wise that we're used to, maybe giving games away that we should have had. Also possibly having like games we have no business like kind of hanging around in. So I think it's just going to be kind of like one of those wild ride seasons. You kind of have us taking over in the third quarter and then us completely imploding in the fourth. It's a young team. You're missing your 4 best offensive players for most of the game or all of the game. Elton Jenkins goes down during the game, and then obviously Bakhtiari doesn't suit up for either he aggravated something last week or it could be the turf. I'm not going to get into which one he wanted to sit out on. Watson and Jones hopefully come back next week. So a lot of inexperience on the field, not your best talent on the field, and you go into a rowdy Atlanta stadium and hang in there.
It's the first time I've ever, since I've been a Packers fan, that I can think of a time that if we have a lead in the fourth quarter, or even if we're within striking distance, down 7 points or down 3 points, I expect to win those games.
Yeah.
So that time that we were down by or up by multiple scores and we gave it up was that 2014 NFC Championship game. For those wondering out there, but yeah, it's like whether it's Favre or Rodgers, like you expect to win, and it's really crazy when the cards don't fall our way, especially when going into this week, we talked about it on Friday. Like the game plan was as clear as day. Stop their run game and you have the victory in hand. And it's like as the game wore on, they pushed our defensive line around, and Bijan Robinson finished with 6.5 yards a pop. Like, you know what they're going to do going into the game, and you still couldn't stop it. And the game is still won up front. And I think that's what it all came down to there in that fourth quarter when we had 2 drives and went 3 and out and did nothing with the football. And then Atlanta's ground game just took over it. And then, Dave, you think that's probably a good spot to start if we need to be placing some blame and pointing fingers here on this overreaction Monday and telling Joe Barry he needs to get out of town and what this defensive game plan was. Yeah. And then it's the question of whether we have the horses in the stable to get the job done on defense when this has been a reoccurring theme for basically like more years than not for us as Packer fans.
I don't think Love will ever make a move unless we're mathematically eliminated. And then it's kind of like the writing's on the wall where it's like, all right, I'm just going to kind of let the guys go and have like a defensive position coach kind of take over the reins for the last couple of games or something like that. But I think Barry's here to stay for the whole year. It's kind of one of those things. And then it's going to be another year where it's going to be the main topic of the offseason of, is he going to make a switch? What's going on? Got so much talent on that defense. I will say this though. I mean, he put guys in positions a few times, and Quay drops one that hits him right in the face mask. Jair drops one that would have been a house call. There's times where you look at it and you say scheme wise is terrible, or they have such a mismatch where you have Campbell on Robinson on that third down and it's just a quick slant. Like if you're looking at that from the press box, just call a timeout and try to get into something else.
What a head-scratching play. It's 3rd and 3, and Bijan Robinson has Devondre Campbell lined up over over top of him, and he's 10 yards, giving him that much cushion
Yeah.
when it's 3rd and 3. That goes back to last year when we have people taking screenshots of us on defense and being like what the hell are we doing out here? And how soft Jair Alexander played throughout the entire of the game. I love it that he shadowed Drake London, but what happened to physical in your face, want to play press man, even though Drake London's a bigger wide receiver? Jair was lined off and 10 yards off him the whole entire game.
The funny thing about their comeback was 85% of it was done on the ground when they were down like 12 points. Like if you're seeing that and they're just popping off 5, 6, 7 yard runs, just stack the box and be like, okay, if you want to come back, like clearly this is how you want to do it. Like we'll take this away from you. Try to throw it on us. Like we trust our secondary. But there was no adjustment, which I feel like that's like if you're in the Barry camp of he needs to go, that's kind of your go-to statement of Barry never adjusts to anything that he sees. And sure enough, they basically did a comeback on us with utilizing the ground game. Like that's all they did. It's not like there was a blown coverage and they got an 80-yard quick one on us. It was methodical drives that missed tackles, missed assignments, wrong play calls, lack of aggression all led to it.
12 points. When you're up by 12 points on a team, you would expect that they have to ditch the run game and then just start chucking it all over the yard with less than 12 minutes to go in the game. They're like, oh no, we know we can still get down the field twice in 2 drives and make up those points. And I like, because last year it happened so many times that like when I went back and rewatched the game, I was counting for how many times we're in nickel defense. We only have 2 down defensive linemen. We still had 3 down defensive linemen. They just got pushed around. Like I didn't see Devondre Campbell come up with a ton of plays. And not only, I mean, I talked about Jair Alexander and I thought he gave too much cushion, but and there's another player. He's our best or second best player on the defense. Rashawn Gary did not do a great enough job of setting the edge and containing Desmond Ridder, getting yards with his legs. He picked up a first down as well. Like, I don't think our edge rushers did a good enough job of setting the outside when our offensive run game can barely get to the outside on those pitch plays. We need to scorch them. Like Atlanta, time and time again, they got to the outside of our defense and got upfield.
Yeah, you mentioned our run game. There was, you can kind of wail on the defense here. A lot of people are wailing on the defense. A lot of people are complaining about A.J. Dillon. Like, what are you paying him for if you can't get a half a yard? This was a collective fourth quarter collapse because we had Atlanta go down and score, and then 45 seconds later, we give the ball right back to them. Like, the defense just does the quickest 3-and-out ever. And then, yeah, it was just kind of, you felt that youth tension almost kick in. You got Dylan tripping over himself, only needing a yard left. Then Love's owned up to it in the press conference saying, I called the wrong, check there, and he's the only one doing the QB sneak. He's just running right into Myers in front of him. So you kind of almost had that youth moment of, like we talked about, you got to learn how to win. You got to learn how to hold a lead. You got to, then when you're in the situation, there's going to be so many situations that this team's just going to be new at. How to come back on a last minute drive, how to, buckle down in a tough game, and even like we learned in Atlanta, how to just put a game away when you do have a big lead.
Yeah, and they even showed it on the TV broadcast too of one of those 3-and-out drives that we had in the fourth quarter on offense of Romeo Doubs streaking wide open on this deep crossing route, and he decides to target, I want to say, Wicks on that play, and it was an incompletion. Like, he had that one. We picked up a couple of nice runs on first and second down. Then it comes to third down, and A.J. Dillon's tripping over his feet. Yeah, and then we were going to go for it on fourth down, but Love couldn't get the snap off. I don't know if I'm going to put the offense too much responsible. Yes, I think you need to get a first down, but I think it's demoralizing as a team when you watch your opponent march down the run game and you can't do anything to stop it. Like, all momentum's on that side. You're playing an away game. it's tough to sort of stop the bleeding when that kind of thing happens. There was still, I mean, look at the third quarter though. It was like it was day and night for what happened on offense between the third quarter and those two amazing drives for touchdowns, and then in the fourth quarter, just stalling out and showing the inexperience.
I would give you a couple of stats / overall themes that might make Packer fans feel better. For one, the entire division lost this week. So the Packers are still in first place in the division. Like, second thing to make Packer fans feel better is Green Bay Packers have never started the season 2-0 when starting this season both games on the road. So in the 100-year history of the Green Bay Packers, the Packers have never started 2-0 when the first 2 weeks are on the road. So it would have been the first time ever. So that is no kind of, it's the old adage in kind of baseball and hockey where you're never out of it if you split on the road. You just control what you can control at home, and then on the road you kind of split it. And the Packers are still in fine shape there. Second thing, Jordan Love is the fourth quarterback in franchise history to start the season with like 3 touchdown passes in his first 2 games. So Jordan Love, he also has the highest passer rating in the NFL or in the NFC, going into Monday Night Football right now. There's a lot to like about Love. His completion percentage down, but he has 2 3 touchdown games. Aaron Rodgers last year only had 1 the entire season. This youth movement is working out just fine. We saw what Wicks can do. We've seen what Reed can do. Reed's going to be what Amari Rodgers was supposed to be.
And we would not have got that delay of game on the field goal for that 51-yarder. Then that's a difference in the game. And yeah, there was 2 throws that Love had that I thought were spectacular. That tells me, all right, he's the real deal. He's showing sort of glimpses of being like a top 10 QB in the league. He had that rollout. It was a comeback route by Dobbs along the sidelines that he nails him on. I'm like, that looked like a young Rodgers on the move type throw. And then that one to Dontavian Wicks for his first career touchdown, I thought was an absolute strike, hitting him in stride on that post route. Like those 2 plays by itself. And then you take the third quarter touchdown drive that Jaden Reed capped off for a second touchdown of the day. And us here at Titletown Flats are getting our 4th shot of Fireball in, and we're feeling the warm and fuzzies and great about ourselves until the collapse there in the fourth quarter. But that drive, though, I think with it being early in the season, there's a lot of great that you can take away from that.
Yes.
Jaden Reed had 3 catches on that drive. 3 out of the last 4 plays were to him. Like, it makes me think of like when you have Aaron Jones touchdowns and you look at the whole entire possession, it's like Jones, Devontae, Jones.
Yeah.
It was one of those. I'm like, I watched that. I'm like, all right, clearly he's one of our most electrifying players on offense, super dynamic. We need to find ways to get the ball in his hands more often. And being Amari Rodgers, what he should have been, and he's Swerve Irvin times 2, or maybe even times 3. The jet sweep, touchdown.
Yeah.
So many things you can do with him in motion. He can play outside. I'm just so excited with already the development of Jaden Reed 2 weeks in, and for how long it took Christian Watson to get going last year.
Love's 2 best throws of the day were incompletions. The little fade to the corner from Wicks in the back to the back pylon was put right on the money. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. The cornerback just snuck his hand in, and I think Wicks was trying to Willie Mays it and lost a little bit of traction. And actually, if you go back and look to the throw to Torrey that Torrey drops to extend it when we had the illegal shift to end the game, he puts that through a keyhole. It's an incredible throw if you go back and watch that clip. The one thing I kind of want to see more out of his game, we got 87 yards out of pass interferences. They're clearly trying to go deep. He needs to start hitting them. Like, I just need, maybe it just takes 1 to get the confidence up, but I would like to see, us get that play down. I mean, the flea flicker was there. The guy just kind of actually tackled Wicks to the ground. The other one to Dobbs, he threw inside, and Dobbs got held up. But it would go a long way if we could finally make one of those work.
That first flea flicker to Wicks, he had a step, if not two, on him.
Yeah.
I think Love put too much air underneath that football, which I know he's got himself in those situations a few times throughout training camp and preseason. I mean, a lot of it's with Watson. He tried to time his speed, but I know Wicks had a step, if not 1.5, on the defender, and he put too much air under it, allowed the defender to get back to him. Yeah, that is a great point about that end zone throw to Wicks. Willie Mays it. And I think that was just a hell of a play by AJ Terrell, knocking it away at the last second.
This it's just gonna be growing pains. I didn't realize in camp how high on Wicks they are. I mean, Watson's out and they're trying out Wicks to be that boundary guy. And you finally in Atlanta saw flashes of it. He breaks a tackle, gathers his feet, stops, makes one move on the remaining DB, and he's just off to the end zone. I mean, it looks like they found a gem in him as well. And when Watson comes back, it'll be interesting what the pecking order is. Obviously, Watson is going to take Wicks' spot, but having Wicks now have some experience and be in that, fourth wide receiver role. I mean, Torrey's now at 5 probably, but you kind of have to think about matchups, right? I mean, once Watson's back, Watson gets matched up on their 1, Dobbs is on their 2. Good luck to a nickel cornerback covering Breed. He's just going to be a headache for probably years to come. This draft was huge by Goody. You could see the talent of Van Ness. I thought had a really good game. Walker's making that second-year jump. I mean, now it's up to coaching. You made the point of Barry, and then you also made the point of what is LaFleur thinking on that field goal the first drive. There's a lot of youth on this team, but the coaches have experience. Coaches can call timeouts last time I checked from the sideline, right, Jordan? I mean, I don't know. I never played football. Can coaches call a timeout from the sideline?
And it's a different year of, like, it was always that sort of battle between LaFleur and Rodgers, of Rodgers getting pissed if he calls a timeout. And it's like this year you don't have to worry about Love doing it or like the field goal team. Like, that should be in complete authority of LaFleur watching the game clock and not really expecting Love or any unit for that matter to make sure they're getting the playoff in time.
It's pretty head scratching how you have an inexperienced team, but it's like the coaching staff leaves them out to dry way too many times. We've seen that. We saw it in Chicago with Love and LaFleur, same kind of exact situation. And they're trying to go for it on, I think, 4th down, and they end up calling like timeout or get the delay of game or whatever. And the same thing happened here. You need a stricter regime. You need. It seems like there's just a lot of buddy. I mean, I'm all in favor for it. It works really well at times, but I'm not saying get rid of LaFleur, but there's a lot. Like, that's not where I'm going with this at all. Barry, you can argue, but it seems like even position coaches a lot of times. Remember when we used to have like Kevin Green type position coaches get in your face, rile guys up, lead by kind of scaring the shit out of them? And it seems like it's a lot of, I'm going to put my arm around you. Like, we're all good. Like, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of miscues from the sidelines.
Yeah. I mean, you have a young enough team as it is. We're going to beat that drum to death, but you have a young enough team. It's like LaFleur, he's almost showing inexperience with the first couple of drives on offense. He almost looks like he's a first-year head coach when it's like, put them in those favorable play action situations. Like, one of my favorite play calls on the day was this 3rd and 1. I want to say it was like a fake handoff to A.J. Dillon. And then here's Luke Musgrave squeaking out into the flat. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where have those plays been these first 2 games? And we want to get back into that, hey, let's spread them out and sling it around the yard early on. When that doesn't get your quarterback, I don't think, into very much rhythm. I don't think LaFleur's doing our offense a ton of favors early on with the play calling.
We were texting. You sent me a text saying, like, I think it was like midway through the second quarter yet, and we were like, have we had a traditional play action pass yet? And sure enough, like 3 plays later, we finally got to it. But it's like kind of like, where's the hard guitar fake, or where's the just typical play action kind of rollout stuff? It's like, okay, we're faking a pitch, or we are pitching it. And I hate the Packers running pitch play. It is automatic -3 yards, especially when you're running it with AJ Dillon. And it seems like they like giving toss plays to Dillon because they feel like he can gather his feet and get a head start. But his decline is incredible. And I feel bad because super likable guy, has done a lot for Wisconsin in general, Mayor of Door County and all. But Mayor of Door County needs to like get balancing lessons from Simone Baez or something, because the dude can't stay on his feet.
I was texting. I'm like, he needs to get ballet lessons in the off season. Yeah, go spend a few weeks with Simone Biles, because I'm like, all right, week 1, Soldier Field's known for having some tall grass. He got tripped up in that. I mean, but it's been a theme for him now for like the first or the last 2 years. But then yeah, there's another I want to say a potential touchdown run on his hands that he's slipping. He did have a couple of, I will say, to come to his defense, he had a few really nice carries as the game wore on and he starts to get his pads underneath of him. Defenders don't want to hit him. He had a couple times where he did carry the pile for an extra few yards. So I do like that. But it's like the thing with Dillon is when you have your first running back go down, like we need you to be getting five yards from the jump, not take until the third or the fourth quarter to do that. When I think it's showing that he's truly a running back that needs at least 12 to 15 carries to get into a rhythm. But with this sort of team, like we don't have that much patience to give you 15 carries here in the game to get going.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't wait for the 3 or 4 games in December and January for you to have a good game. Like you need to be able to carry your workload throughout the season when it's, in a dome or it's hot in September. Like you can't have 4 inches of snow on the field and that's the only time you produce. Or, when these guys' bodies are all banged up and it's cold and they don't feel like hitting a 250-pound back. Like it would be helpful if you can kind of live up to what you're supposed to be doing in the early part of the season, which last year, and it seems like this year, it's the same old story with him.
They finally did ask LaFleur about it in the press conference too. They're like, has AJ Dillon, has he gained weight? Like, how's he looking? He's like, oh no, he weighs the same as what he has before. LaFleur was pretty ticked off though in the post-game press conference, especially when we started to talk about the offensive line being down our 2 best players. Like they rolled Royce Newman out there. I don't know if we touch upon David Bakhtiari, and we got 5 games left of us playing on turf. Is he going to play in? That could probably be like a whole episode just talking about the David Bakhtiari knee situations and whether he voluntarily said, hey, I don't want to play on turf, or whether his knee was actually acting up during the week. But that's 30% of our games for us to come. And I mean, the biggest question mark for me is I'm just not a fan of Royce Newman putting him out there. We always talk about best 5. Best 5 to me would have been then Walker, move Zach Tom in to left guard, Royce Newman, JRJ, and then move Nyman in. You brought up Buddy. This is the thing where I think it's so buddy. Like they have their favorites, and clearly Josh Nyman has never been on the offensive line or LaFleur's good side. For everything that he's done for this organization, it's great that we're paying him $4 million this year, rewarding him for that. But it's like clearly they're not seeing what we have as fans and how much we value Josh Nyman at the offensive tackle position. That's where I was getting upset when I saw number 70 in there on Sunday.
I was really hoping Rashid would have a good game, and he did not. And then Royce comes in because Dillon just blasts Ellen Jenkins right in the kneecaps, and now Jenkins is going to be out for a few weeks. If you have, Rashid, we haven't seen enough of him, so I'm optimistic that he bounces back if Bach is injured and Walker has to play again. but having Walker and Newman on that left side would be pretty concerning.
It goes from having one of the best offensive left
Yeah.
sides in the league to easily one of the worst. Like we thought we had depth at the offensive line group too. I think that's going to be a continuing thing with David Bakhtiari and turf games, and we talked about in pregame, like what's the cap hit? Like it's week 2, and I know it's overreaction Monday, but I'm through David Bakhtiari. Like last season in Green Bay, hearing what he's had to say in locker room interviews and things that I don't think have been quite the Packer way, and just the way that he's vocalized them. But yeah, I mean, Dave Bakhtiari, you're all pro when you do play, but sort of heading into that prima donna camp that your best friend Aaron Rodgers was in. And yeah, I'm just kind of ready to turn the page when it comes to 69.
I mean, next week, Bach will be back. You very well could move Tom to left guard, and then you just have Nyman or Walker take that right tackle spot, which still is very good. I mean, Bach changes the whole line. Bach is going to be future Hall of Famer. Say what you want. I feel bad for the guy because 2021 ruined his trajectory for the rest of his career. But I mean, maybe I'm sure the medical staff knows all too well. Maybe his knee does swell up more often on turf than it does on natural grass. They were draining a lot of fluid from his knee, 18 months ago. But you are right. After all the comments he made of, turf needs to go, I'm anti-turf. Like players should just like boycott games if it's on turf. And then coincidentally, he doesn't suit up for yesterday's game, which you're a leader of this team. You got a young offense, young team in general. You're leaving your, inexperienced quarterback out to dry at left tackle.
Yeah, I think it's the message that he sends to all those other players by being like, I'm above you, or I'm too good, or I'm gonna bow out from playing here because I don't want to put myself in harm's way. Well, that's every player who steps foot on a turf field. Like they're all. I know you've had knee injuries in the past, but yeah, that's where I'm still a little bit emotional about David Bakhtiari. And I think a lot of it just because the timing of it, Aaron Rodgers would be like, nah, I don't feel comfortable putting my knee out there on Sunday.
Yeah.
Still an all-pro player, he is. And there's a complete discussion about Hall of Fame, and his injury cost us a Super Bowl ring. But we'll say, like, talking about the guys up front, I think this is probably just bad play calling by the Falcons. Our defense did at least have a nice goal line stand. They had it first and goal early on in the game, and then they settled for 3 points. And they got to like 3rd and goal. I'm like, I don't know why they're overthinking it. I'm like, I would have ran the ball 4 straight times down the Packers' throat. Instead, they decided to get cute with it and settled for 3 there. And then a couple of other times too, they had field goals. And it's like the defense bend but don't break. And then here they get in the fourth quarter, and they're lining up 10 yards off the ball from Bijan. They're allowing a free pass play to him. Like there's just 2 guys you need to zero in on. And Joe Barry up there in the press box, we just couldn't seem to answer the bell.
Bend but don't break defense is great until you eventually break, right? Like it's the old adage of, we're going to paper cut you to death. Like if you're playing how they're playing the first 3 quarters, and you're just like, okay, you can march down the field, but you're only getting a field goal, or, you're up 2 scores or 3 scores, and it's like, okay, like, well, you scored a touchdown, but at least you got 8.5 minutes off this clock. Problem is, then all of a sudden, if the offense isn't playing complementary football and you're doing 3 and outs and stuff like that, and you're just rolling back a defense that just went, 12 plays, 8 minutes, and they have to go right back on the field after getting a 1.5-minute water break, the dam's going to break pretty quickly.
It is. No matter how good of a job that Kenny Clark early on in the game, he was wrecking them. He was responsible for that Rasul Douglas interception. I'm like, they can't even put a hand on Kenny Clark at this time. But the more snaps, the more times that you ask him to go back out there, and when a team is just going to continue to pound it in the run game, then we see what can happen.
But we'll be back on later this week for Packers home opener, which, Lambeau crowd will be rowdy. Finally get to see the green jerseys thrown on, and hopefully we get some pieces that we've been sorely missing.
Yeah, I mean, if we would have been able to come up with the win, don't get that delay game. I think Anders makes that field goal, and we head out of Atlanta and them Dirty Birds up 2-0. Like what they would say heading into this week with Jordan Love being down, his number one wide receiver, his number one running back, his left tackle, et cetera, et cetera. Like all things considering, there's no such thing as moral victories. Like to your point earlier, how long it's been going back-to-back road games and coming out 2-0, but I think we're ahead of the curve right now, and
Absolutely.
opening up the home opener. I'm pretty jazzed up about it. Got my dad coming in for the game on Sunday, noon start. I think with it being the first one, the crowd will be up for it, and they won't be sort of sleepwalking into the noon, and they've only had a couple of drinks underneath their belt. But yeah, I'd like to think that Christian Watts and Aaron Jones will be there and suited up and playing.
You hope Bach's back too. So I mean,
Him too. I fully expect. I'm not kidding. I think it was just because of the turf.
Yeah, I mean yeah. So I mean, Aaron Jones is the difference maker. If you want one guy back that was out this week, it's going to be Aaron Jones.
Yep. There's a reason why they're in the fourth quarter that you're having when AJ Dillon's in there and he has a couple of runs, but that's where Aaron Jones steps in. He catches a couple passes, turns up field. You get a couple first down. You can milk out the clock, and that's that.
Man, we'll do the preview later in the week. Good recap. 1-1, man. We're still right there. Still early in the season. No disasters yet.
Way for us not to be sour grapes on a Monday. I think for the most part.
We've been fine, man. There's going to be this is a talent evaluation year.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be excited about. As long as the young guys keep me, getting excited, I'm here for it. It's entertainment right now.
And Dave works out his technology woes on Sunday. We're gonna be all right.
Yeah, God, man. Whew. All right. Till later, bud.
Cheers, guys.